Glad to have you join us on the news on NTA International. I am Vivian Ezadifi. G20 Summit, President Tinubu advocates for global framework to benefit communities hosting critical minerals in Nigeria and Africa. COP30 ends in Belém, Brazil, with a global climate agenda that sets out a $1 trillion investment. Plus, Nigeria and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia explore areas of collaboration that will attract investment in clean energy. And now to the news in full. Conference of Parties COP30 ends in Belém, Brazil, with global climate agenda that sets out a $1 trillion investment pipeline for power grids and energy storage, and a commitment to quadruple sustainable fuels by 2035, with developing countries now leading the push for industrial decarbonization. Charles Alpha reports on key resolution adopted at the COP30.
COP29 and COP30 presidencies, together with the climate high-level champions, worked hand in hand to deliver a COP30 focused on implementation. Over the past 2 weeks, the conference highlighted how climate action is accelerating across key systems, from energy and transport to food and health, and from industry and finance to land, ocean, and education, with clear benefits for people and nature.
We have to be humble enough and realistic enough to know that there are still many things to be done. We're almost there, but we have to do much more.
Real-world climate actions, including a $1 trillion investment pipeline for clean energy and a global plan to quadruple sustainable fuels, stood out among the key outcomes. National climate plans are being updated with a sharp focus on raising ambition, scaling up climate action, and facing down fossil fuels.
With countries like Nigeria against the tax on fossil fuel, there is now no mention of it or a phase-out roadmap. This is because a revised draft removed all language on transitioning away from coal, gas, and oil. And this is against the global spectacle back in Dubai, where a commitment to shift away from fossil fuels to renewable energy was made.
As Nigeria and as an oil-producing nation, because we feel that will hamper both social as well as economical development of our country, so we stood against it.
Adaptation finance is expected to triple by 2025, responding to growing needs for funding to protect communities from climate impacts. The conference reinforced the need for measurable results for people, economies, and the planet, with a commitment to practical solutions that cut emissions and build resilience. These outcomes underline the continued global efforts to tackle climate change and strengthen international cooperation. In Belém, Brazil, Charles Alpha, NTA News.
President Bola Tinubu has called for a global framework that benefits communities hosting critical minerals in Nigeria and Africa, ensuring value addition at the source. Represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, he made the call at the third session of the 2025 G20 Leaders Summit held at the Johannesburg Expo Center in South Africa. State House correspondent Abdulrahman Jibrila reports. We'll bring you the reports in the course of the bulletin. The first ever held G20 summit in Africa is on the way in South Africa. Chukwunonso Nwabeze reports that the leaders present adopted a G20 summit declaration that covered climate, energy, debt sustainability, and a critical minerals pact, as well as a joint call for a just peace in Ukraine, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Sudan, and the occupied Palestinian territory.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa opened the G20 summit in Johannesburg on Saturday, emphasizing the need for multilateralism to confront the threats facing humanity today. This was while addressing leaders from major economies around the world, with the notable exception of US President Donald Trump, who boycotted the summit. President Ramaphosa downplayed Trump's absence and argued that the G20 remained key for international cooperation.
The threats facing humanity today, from escalating geopolitical tensions, global warming, pandemics, energy and food insecurity, to inequality, unemployment, extreme poverty, and armed conflict, jeopardize our collective future. It is therefore essential that we make greater and faster progress towards the achievement of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030.
The G20's role in fixing economic crisis is threatened by geopolitical fractures and competition. Leaders present, however, adopted a declaration that covered climate, energy, debt sustainability, and the critical minerals pact, as well as a joint call for a just peace in Ukraine, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Sudan, and the occupied Palestinian territory. European leaders attending the G20 summit, first to be held in Africa, also scrambled on the sidelines to respond to a unilateral plan pushed by US President Donald Trump to end the war in Ukraine on terms favoring Russia. The G20 comprises 19 countries plus the European Union and the African Union and accounts for 85% of the world's GDP and 2/3 of its population. Why the United States skipped the Johannesburg summit? Because it said it viewed its priorities, including on trade and on climate, as running counter to risk policies. It still intends to take up the baton for the next gathering. Chukunonso Nwabweze, NTA News.
And to our earlier report on the G20, where President Bola Tinubu has called for a global framework that benefits communities hosting critical minerals in Nigeria and Africa, ensuring value addition at the source. Represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, he made the call at the third session of the 2025 G20 Leaders Summit held at the Johannesburg Expo Center in South Africa. State House correspondent Abdurrahman Jibrila has more.
The demands are coming just as Nigeria also backed the creation of global ethical standards for artificial intelligence, aimed at accelerating development across the world, highlighting that for Nigeria and Africa, critical minerals are more than natural deposits, as they hold the promise of industrial transformation for the continent. The Nigerian leader stressed that while the possession of resources alone does not guarantee prosperity, relevant authorities must ensure that the extraction and trade of critical minerals are governed by fairness, transparency, and accountability.
Africa cannot realize the positive paradigm shift we seek in its development trajectory without a collective resolve of the G20. Together, we must confront the persistent regional challenges before us, most notably the urgent need for sustainable financing to ensure effective implementation of our developmental priorities.
The Nigerian leader further stated that as the world advances through green and digital transitions, progress must remain people-centered. On artificial intelligence, the president was emphatic on the task before G20 leaders, development partners and governments to ensure that AI remains a servant of humanity, not a force that reshapes society at the expense of those it ought to uplift, urging G20 leaders and partners to build a future where Africa is not merely a supplier of raw materials, but a continent of value creation, innovation and dignity in work.
Nigeria has in recent times demonstrated its readiness for both foreign direct and portfolio investments. This progress is driven in part by the fiscal policies introduced by the present administration, all aimed at enhancing the ease of doing business in Nigeria. We are committed to establishing 1,000 active businesses in each ward in Nigeria, with a clear objective of stimulating our local economy through grassroots empowerment, skills acquisition, and job creation.
Nigeria also asked world leaders to come up with a more equitable and responsive system to manage global financial flows and address the recurring debt crisis in a manner that meets the needs of all nations. Abraham Jibrila, NTA News.
The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, has disclosed that the high-level federal government delegation to the United States of America, led by the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, is intensely addressing misleading narratives suggesting religious persecution in Nigeria. In a statement by the Special Assistant Media, Rabiu Ibrahim, the minister explained that the high-powered Nigerian delegation currently in the United States has met with U.S. Secretary of War, members of the U.S. Congress, officials of the State Department, and other American stakeholders, and has availed evidence-based information about Nigerian security challenges and provide detailed briefings on counter-terrorism operations, interagency security coordination, and efforts to protect all Nigerian citizens, regardless of faith or ethnicity. The minister said the engagement is crucial for correcting misconceptions that have been amplified during recent congressional discussions and advocacy campaigns. The minister added that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu views the situation with utmost seriousness and has not only strengthened Nigeria's internal security architecture, but also expanded international cooperation to support counter-terrorism and intelligence operations. He said the mission of the delegation underscores the determination of the government of President Tinubu to defend Nigeria's reputation and ensure that foreign partners anchor their decisions on verified information, not one-sided narratives. He emphasized that Nigeria's relationship with the United States remains strong and that these engagements demonstrate the openness of the Tinubu administration dialogue, partnership, and transparency. French President Emmanuel Macron attends a ceremony at the Pretoria Memorial to Struggle Against Apartheid, honoring French figures who supported the movement, including Frantz Fanon, Francois Monclon, and Paul Verges, alongside South African Vice President. The commemoration formed part of Macron's official state visit and highlighted the long-standing solidarity between the two nations. According to governments, the ceremony acknowledged French citizens who played pivotal roles in mobilizing international resistance to apartheid, supporting exiled South African activists, and amplifying calls for global sanctions during the height of the liberation movement. Their contributions, once dispersed across civil society, political network, and cultural organizations in France, were formally recognized through symbolic tributes at Freedom Park's Venue and Wall of Names. Nigeria and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are exploring areas of collaboration that will attract investment in clean energy as the world adopts Energy Transition Master Plan to reduce emission. Director General of the Energy Commission of Nigeria, Dr. Mustafa Abdullahi, engages Saudi Arabia's Minister of Energy and Climate Change, Abdulaziz bin Salman, on the sideline of COP30 in Brazil, where both countries discuss how to accelerate implementation of clean energy while harnessing natural resources for sustainable growth that is focused on energy development for the benefit of its people while protecting the planet. At a separate engagement, the DG of the Energy Commission of Nigeria delivers a keynote address on the commitment of the federal government towards achieving smarter energy efficient cooling transition that is aligned with global climate goals. The engagement explores practical solutions to expand access to cooling while minimizing environmental impact. The discussion focuses on the role of minimum energy performance standards and modern cooling technologies in reducing emissions across emerging economies. Iran has requested foreign assistance in extinguishing a large fire that has ravaged UNESCO World Heritage listed forest for several days. just as Brazil's Supreme Court moves former president into police custody on Saturday to prevent him from escaping conviction for a failed coup attempt. Chinonso Nwabeze has the details.
Reports indicate that the fire was allegedly started by hunters in the rocky area of Alit in the province of Mazandaran in northern Iran. Iranian Deputy President Mohammad Jafar said the country is faced with the impossibility of containing the fire, stressing that the nation had requested urgent assistance from friendly countries. The High Crimean Forest, recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site in 2019, stretches for about 1,000 kilometers along the Iranian coast of the Caspian Sea and into neighboring Azerbaijan. They are deemed unique for both their age, which is between 25 and 50 million years, as well as their varied biodiversity. UNESCO said the forests contain a large number of rare and endemic tree species and are home to many relic and endangered plant species. In another development, Brazil former President Jair Bolsonaro has been taken from house arrest into police custody on Saturday to prevent him from escaping as he appeals a conviction for a failed coup attempt. The Supreme Court said the far-right firebrand was sentenced to 27 years in prison over a plot to stop leftist Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva from taking office after 2022 elections. Supreme Court Judge Alexandra de Moraes, who is leading the trial against Bolsonaro, said his arrest was a preventive measure as is a high-flight risk and not the execution of his sentence. Bolsonaro, who governed Brazil from 2019 to 2022, was placed under house arrest in August and has been confined to an upscale condominium in the capital Brasilia and monitored electronically. In his ruling, Moraes said a planned vigil outside the condominium called by the former leader's son Flavio on Saturday could cause problems that would create an environment conducive for his escape. The judge also highlighted the proximity of Bolsonaro's home to the U.S. Embassy, adding that the far-right leader had previously planned to flee to the Argentine embassy to request political asylum. Chinonso Nwabeze, NTA News.
You are still watching the news on NTA International. More reports shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back. Research has shown that more than 4.7 million lives are lost globally each year and over 500,000 in Nigeria alone due to antimicrobial resistance, AMR, a crisis spreading quietly, rapidly and dangerously. In the reports on the alarming rise of drug-resistant infections, Uche Ugochukwu tells us why experts are calling for urgent action to strengthen surveillance, ensure access to quality medicines, and promote responsible antibiotic use across hospitals, farms, and communities.
Globally, health experts have warned that decades of medical progress could be stalled due to the growing threat of antimicrobial resistance, AMR, as it is rendering common medicines inefficient, turning bronze treatable infections into deadly challenges. And this is attributable to misuse and overuse of antibiotics in hospitals, pharmacies, farms, and even households.
A lot of farmers use antimicrobials or antibiotics even when it is not prescribed by a veterinary doctor. So if these resistant pathogens are in animals, they can also find themselves in humans through the food chain.
To reverse the trend, specialists are now calling for stronger national surveillance, better regulation of antibiotic sales, improved access to quality medicines, and public education on responsible use of antimicrobials.
Already, the social and economic consequences of this problem are staggering.
We support our member state to develop their national action plans in the context of One Health approach.
As the world races to prevent a future where common surgeries and infections become deadly, they say improving awareness, strengthening healthcare systems, and enforcing responsible antibiotic practices remain critical steps towards controlling AMR. Uche Ugochukwu, NTA News.
Trade unions across West Africa are renewing calls for stronger investment in social security systems and the creation of decent, sustainable jobs to boost productivity and reduce poverty in the sub-region. These concerns took center stage at a regional workshop on financing social protection and just transition, convened by the Organization of Trade Unions of West Africa in partnership with the Danish Trade Union Development Agency. Joseph Hussein reports.
Communities across West Africa continue to battle the effect of conflict, climate shocks, and other crises. Yet, with social protection coverage just about 15%, millions remain without basic support. Concerned by this slow pace of implementation, trade unions from across the sub-region are meeting in Abuja to share experiences and push for stronger financing.
And we believe that through the different measures and interventions that are provided as part of social services, cash payments, and many other targeted interventions targeting the most vulnerable people in our society, these are actually very important to address poverty and inequality. Social protection, when workers can access health care, and when they are ill, they are able to get help and get the necessary health support that they need and then come back to do their work.
West Africa has the highest poverty rate. It has lowest coverage rate compared to other regions of Africa, with only about 9% of the population covered by some form of social protection. While we know that in other regions there is about 70% of coverage.
With climate change accelerating and economics shifting, the unions are also demanding a just transition from fossil fuel to cleaner energy, ensuring workers are protected and decent jobs are created. In Abuja, Joseph Utsen, NTA News.
The Federal Ministry of Education says it has not issued any directive for schools across the country to shut down on November 24, 2025. In a statement by the Ministry Director, Press and Public Relations, Folashade Borowo, the Ministry described a report circulating on social media alleging a nationwide shutdown as false and misleading. It's noted that it did not originate from the federal government, the Federal Ministry of Education, any state Ministry of Education, or any recognized security agency. Urged members of the public to rely strictly on verified information from official channels. The Alumni Association of National Institute condemns in the strongest terms the recent abductions and the persistent acts of insecurity bedeviling the nation. Nigeria insisted that those incidents which continued to inflict fear, pain, and uncertainty on innocent citizens are unacceptable and should not be allowed to persist. The association, in a statement, extends her deepest sympathy to the families of all victims of kidnapping, violence, and other security breaches across the country. It further stated that her thoughts and prayers are with the families and communities affected during this extremely distressing period. AANI calls for urgent, coordinated, and expeditious action towards the safe rescue of all abducted persons, urging the federal government, state government, and all security agencies to redouble their efforts, re-strategize, and adopt more proactive, intelligence-driven measures to protect the lives and property of Nigerians. I will now take you to Zamfara State, where police in Zamfara State have successfully rescued 25 persons abducted by armed bandits from Kuraje community in Bongudu local government area of the state. This is contained in a statement issued by the Public Relations Officer of the Zamfara State Police Command, DSP Yazid Abubakar. According to the statement, the victim, comprising 10 women and 15 children, were abducted when bandits in their large number attacked the community on Friday, 21st November 2025. The statement says, upon receiving the distress report, the police patrol team, in collaboration with the operatives of Zamfara State Community Protection Guards, swiftly pursued the fleeing bandits and engaged them in a coordinated and strategic operation that led to the successful and safe rescue of all the victims, all of whom have since been reunited with their families. And now to weather report. And that concludes the news on NTA International. I am Vivian Izadifi. Bye for now.